Bushcraft 412, and today let's talk about the Saiga 7.62x39mm rifle. Some people say Saiga, some people say Saiga. I say Saiga. Live with it. This is basically an AK47 produced in Russia. Same factory where the AK47s are made, but with some slight differences. This rifle came about being due to the assault rifle ban, in which during that time period, nationally, they no longer allowed pistol grip stocks, bayonet lugs, threaded barrels, all that fun stuff. Folding stocks, if I didn't mention it. And they sort of created this rifle basically to make a sporting version of the AK-47 that would be legal in this ban. Of course, sense-wise, nationally the ban has been lifted, but there are a few states, New York being one of them, that still enforces the ban and still lives by it. So I purchased this rifle in 2007 because in New York, AK-47s are, number one, really expensive, and number two, they either have to be pre-ban, which I believe is 2004 for New York State, because it's not the national, it's when the state one took place. It's either 2003, 2004, or it has to be modified so that it doesn't have those, the evil features that make it an assault rifle. So I picked this up. It was in the neighborhood of $300. Nowadays, I know they go between $350. I've seen them up to $500 and $600, depending on what caliber and what options they come with. This particular one came with the skeletonized stock, as you can see. This is a factory stock, not aftermarket. It did come with the gun as I bought it. I do like it because it reminds me of the Mac 90 thumbhole stocks, which is a way where you get kind of a pistol grip, but not really. As you can see, it's connected, so it's not a true pistol grip, but it's very similar to a pistol grip, and I like it. I think it's neat looking on the gun, so I went with that one. I think it cost me $25 extra when I bought the gun. Let's talk real quick about the differences between this and a standard AK-47. First of all, as you can see, no threaded barrel, no bayonet lug. Moving on, the trigger group is moved back so that it can't accommodate a pistol grip on the receiver, which is a stamped receiver, by the way. They're not milled. And it's also not the same as an AK-47 trigger group. They wanted it to be different so you couldn't use parts from the AK-47 to make this full auto. Most Saigas come with a Monte Carlo stock. This one came with the skeletonized thumbhole stock, but for the most part they come with normal Monte Carlo stocks. The operation and mechanics of this are identical to your standard AK-47. It's no different than one you buy. The internals are pretty much identical, and even though I haven't tested it, I'd be willing to bet most of the parts are fairly interchangeable. It has your standard front sight, and there's a rear leaf spring sight in the back there as well. Which is graduated up to like 1,000 rounds, maybe 900,000 yards, something in that neighborhood, even though you never really are going to fire a 7.62x39 that distance. It has on the back side the AK-47 side mount, which I use to put on the scope. And if you have any questions about the scope setup, please go to my page. I do have 2 videos on the scope setup already, so go to those videos and ask questions there if you do have any questions. But it's a standard feature on the AKs, standard on this. A lot of the parts and aftermarket parts that are made for that are actually geared towards the Saiga because they are manufactured a little more consistently than AK-47s, which have been made over the course of 40, 50 years and by different manufacturers, different countries, Iranian, Romanian, Russian, Yugoslavian, Chinese, you name it. A lot of the side mounts are actually designed for these and work great with them, so just putting that out there as well. The furniture that came with this one, of course, is basically plastic. It's a composite, plastic material, same as with the stock. You can buy aftermarket parts, and you may have to, if you do any kind of modification to this gun, where 922R compliance comes into play, you may have to buy some American-made aftermarket parts to keep it compliant. And I'm going to tell you one thing, guys. I know, here's the big complaint I have, is the magazines. Nowadays, you can buy 30-round magazines. When this gun first came out, you could not. And they made the magazines different than the AK-47 because they didn't want you to be able to use high capacity mags. This is a 5-rounder I got for hunting. Little 10-rounder I got as well, just to show you real quick. The magazines were made slightly different so that they would not be interchangeable on purpose. And that's because the Saiga originally was limited to 10-round magazines. Now, you can convert these to accept AK-47 mags. That conversion, however, gives you some issues with 922R compliance. Look that up if you're going to do any converting on your rifle, because you definitely want to be in compliance, because I'll tell you what, having the ATF come and raid your house and take your guns is not a good thing. And getting a weapons charge against you is something that's going to be able to keep you from owning guns in the future. So my best advice is own all your firearms and accessories legally, because it's not worth risking losing your right to own guns. And trust me, the government will take any excuse they can to limit that right of yours. So be responsible and run legal. That's all I'm going to say on that. So now you can't get the 30-round clips for the Saiga. I, however, cannot, because I'm in New York, and New York still uses the 10-round limit. Ugh, I hate it. I know, but there's nothing I can do about it. So I'm stuck with 10-round magazines for this, or my option is to do a conversion and then make it 922R compliant by adding some American-made parts, which I think it only needs 3 or 4, so you can do like the front guard, the trigger group, and an American-made magazine. I think is usually enough to make it compliant, but definitely do your research if you're going to do it. So with that said, what you got here is an AK-47 with some very slight differences to keep it legal in the few states that are still upholding the ban, or this is just a sporting configuration AK-47. Price range $300, $400 is not bad at all. I would actually pay way more than that for an AK-47 in New York. So these are actually a great option in New York because the price is just significantly cheaper, and then you don't have to worry about people modifying AK-47s and really screwing them up. And selling these chopped up AKs at gun shows. You have a nice factory built, factory legal gun, which is what I like the most about this. With all that said, let's get into performance. I put a scope on this because this is my plinker. I bring this sucker to the range because 7.62x39mm ammo is pretty cheap. You're talking like $25 per 100. So I like bringing this to the range and plinking with it. With the scope setup I have now, it's an MOA gun, which means I'm getting an inch or less at 100 yards. An expert shooter could probably maybe even do a little better than that. I don't think I'm at the capacity for this gun and this setup. I am not an expert shooter by any means. It's just a hobby for me. No sights, if you use the normal iron sights, it's a 3 to 4 MOA gun at 100 yards. Maybe a little better, maybe a little worse, depending on how good you are with the gun. So accuracy is very good. It is a chrome lined barrel, so it is, it's meant to last a long time. This is a gun you can put a lot of rounds through and not have accuracy deteriorate over time. Trigger is a little sloppy, a lot of creep on it, and there's not much you can do about it being a semi-automatic. You have to actually drill out the rivets and take the whole group out. It's a real pain. Not many, homemade trigger jobs you can do on this gun to make it better, but you do get used to it, and once you get used to it, it's really not too bad. Reliability is fantastic. This gun, I've been shooting this since 2007. I bring this to the range almost every time I go. Usually put 100, 200 rounds through it at a time. I don't think I've ever had it jam. I don't think I've ever had a problem with it. But that's AK-47s for you. They're built to be superb guns that never jam, that never give you any problems. So, no different with this. They're made in the same factory anyway. Most of the parts are the same. So, reliability is amazing. As for uses, this can be a hunting weapon. I do have the 5-round clip, like I showed you, just for that, because in New York you have to, semi-autos have to be a 5-round clip. Ballistics of the round for a soft point round are very similar to a 30-30. So it's about a 100, 150 yard deer gun. Accuracy is plenty, but just the knockdown power on the 7.62 really drops out past 150 yards. So I try to keep it with 100 and 150 yards. The gun's not suitable for bigger game. Not really suitable for varmint. You could close up, but not really a good varmint rifle. But I consider this a great plinking rifle. I bring it to the range and love this thing at the range. And I did use it for deer hunting for, 4 or 5 years before I got my Savage 30-06. So it can do that as well. It is a nice poor man's deer rifle. At $300, you can definitely take down some deer with this. You could use this as a combat rifle. You could use it as an shtf rifle. You can, there's a lot of things you can use this for. If you want to keep the iron sights on it, if you want to put a red dot on it, you can do whatever you want with this thing. But this is a good rifle that you can give a beating to, and it's still going to perform for you year after year after, obscene, rounds through that barrel. It's still going to shoot good. It's still going to be a great gun for you. I can't say that for every other gun out there. Plus, your variety of calibers, you can get this in 308, 223, you can get 2 or 3 of these and be very, very familiar with the platform. And it's like owning one gun in your familiarity, but have different calibers to choose from, which I do like that option. I do want to pick this up in 223 and 308 eventually, when money allows. So it is some added bonus in that you can just have one gun you're very familiar with, and 3 and 4 different calibers, which could come in pretty handy if you are going to be using this for self-defense or whatnot. So it is nice. I mean, you can modify these. There's a lot of good aftermarket stuff out there for these, and a lot of people do spend a lot of time converting these back to their original AK, status, and they have a lot of fun doing it. And these are neat project guns for that, if you're into that sort of thing. So, I mean, these are really, whatever you want to use these for, whether it's just the range or a project gun or self-defense or whatever, you can do a lot with this. And for the price, I don't think there's anything better on the market. And now, particularly seeing they do have the 30-round clips for these are definitely worth more of the money, I think, now than they were, back when they originally came out, because they are making great, 30-round mags for these. And I mean, essentially you're getting a cheaper AK, just without those features. But you know what? I really don't care about any of those features. I don't need a folding stock. I don't need a pistol grip. I could care less if I ever own a gun with a pistol grip. The thumb hole is fine with me. So, with that said, I hope you enjoyed. I can't believe it took me that long to do this video, but it just kind of must have slipped by my attention. And, I did those scope videos on it, so I never paid much attention. And this is one of my all-time favorite guns, and it will be, because I put just hundreds and hundreds of rounds through this guy. So I hope you enjoyed Bushcraft 412.